Have you ever had a situation where someone takes advantage of you? Well, today we have a story where management finds out the simple lesson that when you don't pay someone, they don't have to work. Let's get cracking. Don't pay me my wages? I won't serve your customers. So this is something that isn't all that uncommon in the service industry, but I thought I would share. Working as a bartender for a hotel that I enjoyed being part of, I had always had a huge interest in making cocktails. So when I scored this job, I was over the moon. On top of that, it had a very good rate of pay and said that although they wouldn't pay overtime rate, they would pay overtime hours worked. This isn't bad at all for full-time in the service industry, as you are normally paid a salary and then massively overworked without any extra money for the insane hours worked. So, enter new general manager, GM, and a business consultant, BC. They have been recruited to try and save the restaurant/bar some money, as it's making no profit whatsoever. Now there is an obvious reason as to why it makes no money in the restaurant. The bar made 3 times the profit expected, and that is as follows. Employing a team of 50 people per day, every day, is a huge drain on your income when your income does not compensate. Being top-heavy and managers with high salaries is beyond stupid. Employing 3 incompetent people to do 1 competent person's job is the equivalent of shooting yourself in the foot. So the bar operates on a team of 12 people during the week, whereas the restaurant operates on a team of 30 per day. We averaged a maximum of 3 bartenders and 1 bar back working a busy shift and maybe 2 bartenders on a quiet shift. The bar is open until 1 a.m. every day and opens at 6 a.m., so it has long opening hours. Staff start and finish times are staggered to give the most effective use of staff hours when needed. The GM and BC decide that they need to make cuts on all overtime hours. Sensible decision. But they decide to start making cuts in the wrong places. Bartenders first. A meeting is called, and all bartenders attend. It's explained to us that we will be receiving less overtime hours, so expect to be put on less shifts. More time at home. This is a win-win so far. What they neglected to tell us is that they would be pulling people from the busiest shifts, as these had the latest close times and often accrued the most overtime hours. So we end up short-staffed, being hit with complaints from our slow service, and the staff starts getting annoyed and look for work elsewhere. We ended up increasing our overtime hours as we had to work later than expected because we had less staff than needed to do the quick close down. 2 months later, and the remaining staff starts muttering things about their pay being lower than usual. So we club together and start working out how much we've lost and how much we are being paid. It turns out that no one has been paid for a single hour over their contracted minimum. Now to some people, this may not be much, but for us, it's anything between 40 and 80 hours a month extra. I spoke to the new GM in a meeting in which BC declared he had to attend. The conversation went as follows. Me. It's come to my attention and the attention of many of the staff that we are no longer being paid for the hours that we work. Is there an error in payroll or is something else going on? Pay slips don't reflect what we are working and our hours accumulated have been changed to salary. GM. Well, we had to cut costs, like we said several weeks ago. As a result, you aren't getting as much overtime, so your pay has dropped. Now, I'm a stickler for counting my hours worked. I take photos/film when I clock in and out every day. I then enter those times into a spreadsheet that automatically calculates normally hourly wage, deducts time taken for break, and then adds additional overtime. This operates on a monthly basis and pumps out a figure which should reflect my monthly wage. 99% of the time it was correct. The only times it wasn't was where the odd 15 minutes were missed off by payroll, but I really didn't care about that. I pull out my laptop, hook it up to a projector, and go through each cell and explain how it works, much to the amazement of both GM and BC. I then pull out my last 2 months' hours worked, compare them to my new pay slips, and have a slideshow running on the other half of the screen with pictures of my documented clock in and out times. With this piled against them, they decide to try and sidesweep it under the proverbial rug. Their idea is if they just ignore it, I'll drop it and find work elsewhere like the others. However, after 2 further weeks of no response, my team and I made an ironclad deal between ourselves. If we aren't getting paid more than our minimum hours, then we won't work a single minute more. Roll on a busy weekend immediately after payday, no one has been paid their extra hours, so the plan goes into effect. We all monitor the time and one by one start immediately dropping what we are doing, apologizing to the customers, and leave. It takes an hour before the GM figures out what is happening, at which point there are 2 people working a crazy busy bar. I'm approached by GM. GM, where are the others? Why have they left? What's going on? Me. Well, we don't get to pay to work more than our minimum, so why should we bother continuing on past our paid hours? The others have gone home because they know they won't be paid for anything past that time. GM. That's ridiculous. You can't just walk out and leave the place like this. Me. Actually, I think you will find out that we can and will. Now the bar was busy. Having only myself and one other on it at this point meant we were losing money through lack of service, slow service, and through apologizing for bad service in general. This very quickly started piling up into thousands. Me. I think you should be aware that my shift ends in the next 15 minutes and the other bartender will be leaving in the next 30 minutes. This was 8:30 p.m. on a Friday night. For some reason, the GM just ignored me and scurried off back into the restaurant. 15 minutes later, I left. 15 minutes after that, my colleague left. Minutes after that, the entire bar effectively went under. We all met in another venue with phones turned off, enjoying a drink and laughing about what had happened. We were pulled into a meeting with HR and the management the following week to discuss our behavior. I explained the situation and told them that unless we were paid our overtime for the past 2 months and every month following, it would happen every weekend and that there was literally nothing they could do about it. Now this is completely legal. If you aren't being paid, you don't have to work it. They threatened to immediately dismiss the entire team if we didn't change our attitudes. We promptly folded our arms in defiance as one of the team calmly but firmly said, "Do it. Have fun running the bar with no staff." We were all told to leave the premises there and then. In the following months, we all learned that the place had never recovered, as we had sent out messages on a local bartenders group stating that whoever worked there would not be treated properly and would not receive the correct pay. It switched from a high-end cocktail bar down to a standard pub-style bar, and then finally closed altogether for renovations. The hotel was eventually taken over by a global company and underwent extensive renovations. We all found jobs fairly quickly after leaving, but never saw our 2 months unpaid overtime, sadly. It makes me sad to see that they got away with not paying the employees. Even if the place closed down, there's still the remains of injustice. This story provides the important lesson in that sometimes you need to stand up for yourself. You need to know your worth and not work long hours just to be loyal to some company. More stories are coming, so be sure to click the notification bell. But the only way to do that is to subscribe. Comment on what you thought of this story and if you ever had something similar happen to you. You made it this far, so please like the video to let me know to keep making more of these. See you in the next one. Cheers.